Barl is an ultimate sword master living in a peaceful rural area. Though he's reached the state of sword and self as one, he still tirelessly trains. But the most important thing is that he's over 30 and still single. His venerable old father frequently brings this up, saying he really wants a grandchild to hold. Barl talks about his training, but his dad thinks 20 years is more than enough, it's time to find a wife. The old man feels his son is ignoring his filial duties by not fulfilling his father's wish. Barl's main job is currently teaching swordsmanship to many students around the village. With more and more students coming, he uses it as an excuse, these are all descendants anyway. Besides, without a wife, where am I going to get grandchildren? His dad thinks there's no shortage of beautiful girls at this dojo, he could just pick one to be his wife. Barl refuses and has to go somewhere else to stop the old man from nagging him. Inside, he continues sparring and instructing his students. Since the day he was born, Barl has always held a sword. When he was young, he dreamed of becoming a great swordsman, but he lacked confidence in himself. Plus, now that he's older, his speed is declining. Even so, he's not sad, he feels he belongs here. Although he's not a great swordsman, Barl has a talent for teaching, which is why so many disciples come to learn. Furthermore, almost all of those he trains go on to achieve success. At dinner, his father again brings up finding a wife for his son, turning to his wife, "You think so too, right?" She gently replies, "That will happen sooner or later." Barl thinks his mother is amazing, with just one sentence, she stops his father from saying anything. However, she also really wants a grandchild to hold. Just then, an old student knocks on the door. It's Alucia, currently the captain of the Royal Knights. Consider Barl's teaching efforts repaid. He asks what brings her here today, and she explains that she is also currently teaching swordsmanship to her subordinates. Barl feels proud because Alucia was a talented rough diamond from a young age. Today, she's here to announce that Barl will become a special instructor for the knights. He doesn't understand at all and is shown a letter of introduction with the royal seal. If he refuses this, he'll definitely be executed, no joke. Alucia urges him, "Master, please prepare quickly, I'll be waiting outside in the carriage to depart for tomorrow." Barl doesn't teach today, so she deliberately came today to avoid affecting the dojo. His father agrees, also requesting that he bring a daughter-in-law back, and even pairing Barl with Alucia because she is very beautiful. He thinks his father is talking nonsense because there is quite a large age difference between them. This is what Barl thinks, unaware that Alucia actually likes him. She doesn't care about the age difference, but she doesn't dare tell Barl directly about her feelings. Later, while in the carriage, Barl asks if his junior disciple still uses the sword he gave her. This was a gift after graduation. He's happy to see Alucia cherish it, but thinks the captain of the Royal Knights should use a better sword. She happily replies, "I feel like this gift is still very handy, so I don't want to change it." He always thought the teacher should be better than the student, but perhaps Alucia surpassed him long ago. Being respected, Barl is very happy, but at over 30 years old, keeping up with the current generation is a bit difficult. The girl then calls her teacher Holy Sword of the countryside. Finally, the Master Swordsman has come to the capital. Alucia calling Barl Holy Sword is completely justified. Because he has trained many top swordsmen and adventurers. Barl self-deprecatingly thinks that perhaps only this student thinks that way. Becoming an instructor for the Royal Knights is very suitable for him. Most importantly, she wants to take this opportunity to improve her relationship with her teacher. And so they traveled until nearly evening, when they finally arrived at the capital. Since it's been a long time since he's been out like this, the teacher plans to buy souvenirs. The student also finds him a place to rest for the night, then they'll figure out what to do tomorrow. As expected, Barl is not used to life in a crowded urban area. The next morning, they stood before the entire army for the introduction. Alucia states that her teacher is much stronger than she is. The result makes many people unhappy, thinking that this is just a country bumpkin with nothing special. After saying a few words, Barl is praised for being too emotional in his speech. According to the contract, from now on, he will have to come here to teach a few days a week, which will not affect his work at the dojo. At this time, another student runs over to greet him, she's Karuni, a junior in the same class as Alucia. Although still young, this girl is currently working as a knight. Remembering back then, this girl always tried to practice to get here. The dream has been realized, and the credit is also thanks to Barl's teaching. They will be here to support, so they hope he will order them around as he pleases. In the evening, Barl returns home in a very happy mood. Even happier when there are guests at home. It's Jandrich, one of Barl's elite disciples. This young man now has a family and children, unlike the teacher who still doesn't have a single relationship. That's why his father asks his son to return to the royal capital to pick up girls, and let Jandrich take care of the swordsmanship teaching at the dojo. The request is that he doesn't come back here until he gets a wife, shocking Barl. He asks and finds out that the young man moved back to the countryside because his wife just gave birth, and as an adventurer, he wanted to find a peaceful place to live during this time. Barl feels a little wasteful because he has reached platinum rank and now has to quit. Jandrich always remembers his teacher's kindness. Barl thinks that he taught him 10 years ago. And achieving success now is due to his own efforts, he didn't help at all. Adventurers are rich, but it comes with danger, so staying here to teach swordsmanship is also good. The old man strongly believes in this disciple, wants to hand everything over to the young man, and push his son to the royal capital, so it's a win-win situation. Although Barl didn't want to, he was cornered and had no choice but to accept the outcome. The next day, the teacher had to ask Alucia to help him find a boarding house. She felt lucky because that would make it easier to woo him. The inn they stayed at the night before was very good, but the price was high. Now that he needs to stay in the city for a while, his top priority is to choose a cheap place. The girl also invites her teacher to live in her house to save money, but Barl refuses outright because that's not right. Hearing that, she's a little sad, then invites him to eat, considering this a real date. At this moment, someone suddenly criticizes the commander of the Royal Knights for being with a strange man. Hearing that, Barl is a little worried because he's afraid of bringing shame to Alucia. The speaker is Lysandra, her archenemy. Because they don't want to argue, they leave. However, the big girl still follows to ask who this man called teacher is. Barl has never seen a black adventurer badge before, so he's curious. Looking up, he's called teacher by Lysandra, because in fact, she was also taught by him. They haven't met for a very long time. She tries to rekindle the old memories, saying that she was adopted by Barl and taught swordsmanship. Hearing that, Barl also remembers that time, not expecting her to grow up so much. Lysandra always wanted to tell her teacher about her success, but didn't have the opportunity. Barl smiles, once you've grown up, everyone is busy. It's good to see her become someone admirable like this. Asking about the reason they're together, Alucia says that the teacher is an instructor for the Royal Knights and that she's looking for a place to stay for Barl. Hearing that, Lysandra thinks that no one is better at finding a suitable place than her. This also makes sense because she's been an adventurer for so many years. Again, the two keep fighting each other, making Barl confused. They searched until the afternoon, when they finally found a place that met all the criteria. Barl also has to thank Alucia, and praises that they are indeed close. They smile and ask to leave so the teacher can rest. The next morning is the first day to start training the young knights. However, the vice captain does not accept it. To be an instructor, he must be better than them, so he wants to test his skills with the teacher. Alucia also introduces Barl to this young man, Drought, but she also agrees to the challenge on her own, considering this a good opportunity to show them his strength. Suddenly pulled into a battle, Barl had to comply. Everyone shows contempt, thinking that he's only praised by the captain, but there's no way he's as strong as the rumors say. Barl doesn't care because he's just a middle-aged uncle after all, wanting at least not to lose face in front of the younger generation. The match begins. According to the assessment, Drought has very strong chopping power. But his technique is a bit poor. He can be easily defeated by deflecting the attack. People think that Barl got lucky, but in reality, he tried to stop in time to avoid hurting others. The young man continues to attack with all his strength. Indeed, the speed and power of each chop are terrible, but the attack method is too simple and predictable. Being knocked back continuously, he unleashes his strongest technique, but somehow Barl dodges it, immediately slips behind and ends the battle. Alucia also asks the vice captain if he's satisfied. He immediately changes his mind, praising the teacher for being too wonderful, wanting to be taught more in the future. The others also start to stop talking about Barl's personality. In the evening, the whole group gathers to celebrate the first day of teaching. Drought pays for everything, as an apology for looking down on him. Barl doesn't care because suddenly there's an old man who comes and demands to be taught. Such a reaction is normal. Barl also points out many places for the young man to improve. In the countryside at this time, Jandrich is confiding in the teacher's father. He's also very happy that Barl can leave here. Talented swordsmanship like that is too wasteful if he spends the rest of his life teaching. He claims that he has never met anyone as strong as Barl. The father is looking forward to his son bringing a daughter-in-law home. A week has passed since Barl moved to the royal capital to teach swordsmanship. Everyone is very obedient and doesn't have any complaints. He often points out the mistakes of his students so they can improve. Although it's only small things, if done well, half a step is enough to determine victory or defeat. After saying that, he turned around and got looked at, so he was a bit embarrassed. Fortunately, he fought Drought the other day, so everyone is willing to listen to him now. Karuni then ran up to ask if the teacher had any plans for the afternoon, wanting to take him sightseeing because she noticed Barl wasn't familiar with the city and had just been going back and forth between here and the inn all week. Drought chimed in that it was a waste since there were tons of fun places in the upper districts. That girl got super excited, told the teacher to trust her, and then ran off to change into a fresh outfit. As for Alucia, she was working with relevant parties at this time. Her superiors also asked if the new instructor could be trusted. Alucia simply replied, "The teacher far exceeded expectations, so don't worry." In her mind, she always thought that if she wanted to become a master swordsman, she shouldn't hold a position like hers, because it would be a waste of time to deal with paperwork like today, for example. But if she didn't do that, she wouldn't be able to bring the teacher here. Remembering the memory from the beginning after her family moved to a peaceful rural area to live, Alucia's parents wanted to learn swordsmanship from Barl because they had heard of the dojo for a long time. Learning how to protect yourself is necessary in this area. There are almost no knights going back and forth, so there are some dangerous elements. At first, Alucia was quite afraid of strangers. The teacher knew this and greeted her gently to get acquainted. The girl felt the gentleness and became less worried. Alucia's training class that year was full of talented people. Later on, the teacher not only taught swordsmanship but also imparted important experience, and his method was extremely effective for a person with poor physical strength like Alucia. It only took a year to transform herself into a completely new person. Every day they practiced the basic exercises again, but for some reason Alucia never got bored. Her strength improved day by day and she got used to fighting. In particular, she was often praised by the teacher, even for the smallest things. Once, Alucia saw Senior Jandrich hesitate to fight the teacher and didn't understand why. Very quickly, the young man lost. When it was Alucia's turn, she was interested at first, but when she started, she realized how Senior felt when facing Barl. They couldn't find any weaknesses on the teacher, so they felt nervous. "Alucia, calm the student, attacking at the moment I move slightly is very good." In the following period, their dojo went to other places to interact. It was just practice sparring, so Barl asked them not to attack from the neck up to avoid danger. Students from both sides were allowed to spar, but the victories were mostly for Barl's students. Alucia faced a young man who wasn't very happy, realizing that this guy was full of openings. She didn't bother to attack first but let him attack and then retaliated. On the way back, she felt that the victory was too easy. Fighting against another school would help gain more experience. She asked the teacher if their dojo was very strong, to which Barl denied. Alucia saw the all-win result, so it had to be. Barl himself also defeated the teacher on the other side. He modestly said that his swordsmanship was just to counter them, so that's why. Sometimes two schools will have one side with more advantages, so it's hard to say who will win, and he wants to focus on what he's aiming for more than winning or losing. Suddenly realizing that she had dropped something, Alucia asked to go back to get it. But when she went to find it, the students on the other side wanted to mess with her. They looked resentful that they had lost to a girl, and tried to attack, but Barl stood up to block, telling them to learn swordsmanship to defend themselves, not to go around hitting people indiscriminately like that. That guy didn't stop and continued to attack. But was defeated. The master on this side heard the noise and came to see, and scolded the stupid people on his side. "It's just that his students are better than yours, that's all." Declaring that they were no match for Barl, he even bowed his head to apologize instead. Barl wasn't bothered by this, and simply took his student home. Although the incident wasn't pleasant, Alucia had a changed perspective. The opposing master even had to acknowledge Barl's strength, yet he was so modest that he never recognized it himself. Alucia also cried because she let her teacher get hurt. Barl told her she hadn't done anything wrong, and that he should have accompanied her from the start, so it was better this way. He apologized for leaving an unpleasant memory in Alucia's head. Seeing this, he invited her out for a meal as compensation. At that moment, she knew her tears weren't from fear, but from the overwhelming emotions in her heart. Over the following period, Alucia's combat abilities improved, even threatening the person who had taught her swordsmanship. After succeeding, Barl gifted her a sword as a graduation present, saying that she was strong enough to protect herself and that he had nothing left to teach her, so this would be their last session. She knew she still wasn't a fraction of the swordsman he was, but she couldn't impose on him forever. After accepting the gift, Alucia wanted to prove how incredibly powerful her teacher's skills were, so she participated in the knight's entrance exam. There, she defeated all of the judges and veteran knights, none of whom could keep up with Alucia's speed, signifying that they were far inferior. She joined the knights with the highest score and dared to guarantee that Barl's reaction abilities were the ultimate. From that point on, Alucia had another ambition, to bring the holy swordsmanship of their hometown out into the world, so that their talent wouldn't be wasted. To do that, she needed to become a commander and achieve many accomplishments. And after she had everything she needed, 10 years had quickly passed. Holding power and strength in her hands, Alucia finally dared to invite her teacher back to teach. Unexpectedly, Barl hadn't changed at all, the only thing that had changed was that his skills were even sharper than before. Some might think she was abusing her power, but Alucia wanted her teacher to have a position that was worthy of him in others' eyes. She had prepared everything for that. Back at the training hall, Alucia didn't see Barl, so she asked Drought. Drought replied, Karuni took the teacher to tour the city. Hearing this, Drought couldn't help but feel jealous of her junior, because she wanted to do the same. It would have been considered an official date. On the other side, the two were strolling around everywhere, but it was mostly Karuni having fun while Barl wasn't really doing anything. This western district had many places to buy delicious food, so Karuni really enjoyed going there. Barl thought, an old country bumpkin like me doesn't belong in a lively place like this. Just then, another student came over to greet them. Facel was in the same class as Karuni, so they were very close. At first, Barl didn't even know who she was, and then she suddenly called him teacher, which caught him off guard. Facel was a bit sad to be forgotten, but she had changed so much that he didn't recognize her. After seeing the sword that was proof of her completing her training, he remembered she was the cold student from before, but because she was more open now, he had forgotten. 5 years had passed, and Facel said she had grown up, and was now a rising star in the magic squad. Barl was confused. Why did you join them when you're a swordsman? She also needed to buy some magic accessories. She took out a ring and activated fire magic for her old teacher to see. After seeing it, Barl truly believed she was a mage. Very few people had the talent to be in this profession, proving that Facel had worked very hard, and was famous for possessing both swordsmanship and magic skills. Barl cherished Facel quite a bit. So he was a bit sad when she left the training hall, but now he was very proud that he had trained such a talented individual. Just then, a thief snatched something, so Facel wanted to show her former teacher what she could do. She activated a spell on her sword, and just like that, she tied up the thief's legs. Karuni then rushed in and successfully apprehended him. Both of them were used to dealing with criminals. Facel explained that she had put magic on her sword. He had never thought that someone would apply swordsmanship to magic, so he had to thank Facel for bringing him glory. Early the next morning, he woke up early and went for a walk, wanting to do something to avoid being seen as a country bumpkin. At that moment, someone kept following him and calling out to him, but Barl didn't bother to respond, so the person got annoyed. Turning around, he saw it was a young girl, so Barl asked if she was lost. In reality, this woman came looking for him with a purpose, because she knew Barl was Facel's swordsmanship teacher. Lucy introduced herself, saying she was Lucy, the commander of the magic squad. The guy thought kids these days like such things, and got scolded, being told that she wasn't joking around, and she might even be older than Barl himself. He didn't believe it, so she showed him. Lucy then tricked him, saying it would be fun to take a walk with a companion, so she led him elsewhere. After hearing Facel talk about her master, she was very interested and said that girl was very eager to meet Barl again. The sword magic was impeccable, praising the swordsmanship teacher. Barl modestly said that everything was due to Facel's efforts, and he only taught the basics. He even asked if this young girl wanted to learn too. This was exactly what she wanted, so she revealed her purpose. She wanted to spar with the swordsmanship teacher. Fighting a strong opponent would make her stronger. A battle immediately erupted. At first, Barl thought it was just a friendly joke, but she created a whole bunch of magic spells, threatening him, so he had to draw his sword. Though still not warmed up, they have to fight for self-defense. Lucy believes the most important thing is to see self-improvement, and the best way to do that is to fight a strong opponent. Lucy asks if Barl is qualified to try, and he humbly says he's not strong enough for that. Lucy wants to try to find out and immediately creates a giant fireball. Barl is forced to dodge and try to get closer, or he'll be roasted. Lucy continuously unleashes a barrage of moves, fire, then ice. Barl thinks this is just the beginning, not his full power. At least the ice magic can be slashed, so he doesn't have a problem. Lucy admits he's really strong. Not wanting to injure him badly, Barl decides to make a surprise attack with his chain sword. With his speed, Barl successfully gets close, but before he can do anything, the opponent's whole body bursts into flames to push him away. Lucy smiles and advises Barl not to get close like that. It's really terrifying that a magic user can outperform a master swordsman. And it doesn't stop there. Lucy wants to unleash even stronger magic. Barl tries to dodge the pouring rain of fire. And it's revealed that he's never faced a mage before. This feeling is really bad, when it's very difficult to approach. If it weren't for his great reflexes, the fight would be over. Lucy starts seriously creating a giant ice block, trying to crush him. However, he slashes it towards Lucy to create space. Lucy uses fire to evaporate the ice block to approach again. However, she hasn't used her full magic yet, so the opponent continues to be pushed back. He didn't expect that tiny body to have so many skills. After being threatened twice, Lucy is about to unleash her strongest move. Barl is wondering if he can do it. Suddenly, his whole body feels weighed down. The pressure Lucy is exerting is enormous, shaking the entire area like there's an earthquake. Barl thinks he'd definitely die if he got hit by this. Luckily, Lucy proactively stops, not wanting to fight anymore. Lucy also admits she's just like a child, playing this trick. If the last magic doesn't shake Barl, she would give up. Lucy thought she had timed it right to win, but Barl was so strong. Barl thanks Lucy for stopping and asks what would happen if he was hit by that magic. Lucy bluntly says he would definitely explode, scaring him. Lucy doesn't show anything, saying if she restrained herself, it wouldn't be completely destroyed, and his relatives could still pick him up. After this fight, Lucy understood why Ficelle admired him so much, and she has never beaten her father at home. Lucy thought to herself that the old man must be strong. She also wants to know if Lucy's attack made him feel a chill down his spine. Barl smiles and says that phase was really difficult, making Lucy smile. Lucy promises to meet him at the Magic Academy next time, and promises to make up for what happened today. Barl doesn't have talent in this field, but also wants to try to find out. Lucy also made a request, saying if he learned any new magic, she would come to try it like today. That's really something. Cut to Ficelle, she went to the Knight's order to deliver recovery medicine, and also wanted to talk to the teacher for a bit. The Knights always order magic medicine from her, which seems interesting, because every time he gets injured he uses herbal medicine. The student also has to give Barl a bottle to apologize for the fight this morning, and she heard it from Lady Lucy. Only now does she believe Lucy is the real commander. Ficelle says Lucy looks so young because of magic, but no one here knows Lucy's age. Barl also accepted the gift and didn't blame the student at all. At this time Alucia arrives, wanting to talk to Barl about a few things. Seeing this, the other girl asks to leave first and meet the teacher later. Entering the room, he heard that Lysandra wanted to ask for help. Lysandra represents the Adventurers Guild, and has also been allowed by the Knights to invite Barl to support them. This is a request from the guild master, but he doesn't know why they even knew about Barl to invite him. Barl asks what he needs to teach, and the student says to prepare for the first dungeon conquest, and the ability to respond if an emergency occurs, so they need his swordsmanship skills. Speaking of dungeons, he also tried it in the past, because the items from monsters are very valuable. If you're lucky you might even find a treasure chest. However, it's very dangerous, scaring Barl to this day. Like if he gets beaten up the first time, he'll really be scared. Lysandra thinks it won't be a problem if it's him. For Alucia, she doesn't care about the offer, but wants others to recognize the teacher's strength. Lysandra agrees and, as always, the two start fighting again, with neither giving in. Seeing this scene, Barl doesn't know what to say, feeling like they never get along. For now, Lysandra wants the teacher to talk to the guildmaster first. The rules of the Knights don't affect the instructor, so Barl is free to do what he wants. Unexpectedly, the headquarters of the Adventurers Guild is right next to the Knights, so the student takes him in. Lucy is also here, and immediately invites him to sit down. He wonders why Lucy is acting like she's at home. More importantly, what is the purpose of coming here? Lucy says she actually heard the opponent was coming, so she stopped by. Lysandra says Lucy is a friend of the guildmaster. He stands up and introduces himself as Nidus, generally believing in Barl because he's the one that top adventurer Lysandra introduced. Hearing this, Lucy also recommends him, making him even more relieved even though Barl has agreed to help. Nidus introduces the assistant, Megan. From now on, the two will work together. Megan starts by wanting to know what Barl has achieved as an adventurer. This seems offensive, making Lysandra annoyed. Megan doesn't give in. Even if the magic commander recommends him, amateurs shouldn't enter the dungeon because it's very dangerous. Barl is happy because he might avoid the work. Black instead, the student sitting next to him doesn't allow anyone to disrespect her master. He says there have been many reports of mutated monster species recently. Of course the guild will be responsible if anything happens, but it's best to give up as soon as you start if you don't have the experience. To have a basis, Megan requests that the two teachers fight each other with full power, so they can see firsthand whether Barl's swordsmanship skills are good enough to participate in this trip. Suddenly being forced to fight Lucy, Barl doesn't like it much, but she likes it a lot, agreeing for both to always be evil. In this way, they went to the training area in front of many adventurers. It's rare for someone to dare to fight Lucy because she's very high ranked. The feeling is really stressful. As for Lysandra, she's been looking forward to this day for a long time. Recalling her past, she was very pitiful. Born into a family of merchants, she and her parents had to go everywhere to make a living, and that day they were attacked by monsters on the road. Parents, to protect their children's lives, pushed the child out, but accidentally fell into the water, but at least it helped Lysandra escape. Barl was the one who found the girl and brought her back for treatment. In the beginning, she would often have pain when she remembered her parents. And Barl also asked to take care of her until she found a new family and she started to fall in love with swordsmanship. When the teacher praised her, she became a little happier. Day by day Lysandra regained her vitality, and was considered very suitable for the adventure job. A few times later, a couple stood up to adopt her. Although it was quite sad, it was very good for her to develop later. Just staying in this countryside was not okay. A few years later Lysandra became a gold-ranked adventurer. Once she met a group of robbers. Without saying anything she ran into a bloodbath with them. There are two reasons why she became an adventurer now. One is to prevent others from encountering a tragedy like she was when she was a child, and the other is to promote the teacher's peak swordsmanship. They still bow to each other sincerely as they did in the past, which makes Barl very happy because she is still his student, and he will do his best to repay her expectations. Currently Landre is using double swords. Her skills are beyond ordinary people, but Barl can still block everything. Their speed is terrifying, making Lucy happy. He knows Landre is always serious in training, so she is so strong. However, she has a weakness. The result has been exploited by Barl in just 2 moves. He has overthrown the student and ended the battle with the victory leaning towards him. After this phase, Landre praises that the teacher is still as strong as ever. Barl humbly says that if it takes 10 more seconds he will lose, and points out the weakness on the left hand for her. Megan after this has bowed his head to apologize for suspecting. The guildmaster also relies on him to assist the new adventurers to complete the mission. The next day, the 2 teachers also started work. Porta, Nidri and Salikas are the 3 lucky ones to be guided. They are all silver rank adventurers, so they have some experience. Entering the dungeon, all 3 use magic items to determine the number of monsters nearby. Very quickly they have eliminated the goblins under the supervision of the other 2. All 3 are very confident to complete the first mission. However, Landre feels that today is too strange because the number of monsters has been reduced so much, so just when she felt something, Porta has been attacked by it. The 2 teachers immediately rushed out to help and realized the creature is a special monster. Landre calls it Gino, and the reason for the few monsters in the dungeon is that this monster has eaten clean. Those monsters with names are incredibly powerful. Not everyone stumbles upon them like this, so Barl considers himself quite unlucky. Knowing Landre carries healing potions, he imagined letting her fight while he rescued Porta, and even held out his hand for the potion. But the girl didn't get the hint and gave him a congratulatory high five instead. Barl then rushed to save the young man, much to his dismay. Because it was supposed to be the other way around, the monsters started attacking, forcing Barl to fight back constantly, unleashing powerful claw strikes. Barl had to defend and find an opening, but the creature's front limbs were too tough, and his attacks had little effect. Conversely, getting hit by one of its attacks would certainly be fatal. After seeing Landre get the person inside the cave, Barl felt relieved. To be safe, he needed to stall for a bit longer, waiting for her to come out so they could work together to defeat it. With overwhelming power, Gino constantly pushed back his opponent. Wounds began to appear on Barl's body. He thought its head was its weakness, so he aimed for it, but the monster could breathe fire. Attacking head-on without reacting in time would definitely result in being roasted alive. Barl thrusted his sword from a distance and quickly retreated to a defensive stance. Seeing this, the bird-headed beast whipped its tail, only to have it chopped off. It cried out, finding a worthy opponent. Barl continued to be pushed back by Gino flames. He couldn't block this attack, so he had to keep his distance. Seeing this, the monster used its superior strength to charge and push the rural swordsman away. Barl successfully stalled and even managed to climb onto its back to attack. The monster angrily flew into the sky, trying to shake Barl off, but he held on tightly. Barl was overwhelmed by the wind pressure, so he eventually had to land back where he started to deal with it. Gino was furious, roaring, and transforming the entire surrounding area into lava. Barl didn't expect it to have such a move, which was quite annoying. He intended to keep his distance, but the lava spread inside, endangering everyone. Hearing their cries, he knew he had to end the battle immediately and charged in. Even though the ground was melting from the heat, his legs didn't stop. The monster, in too much pain from the cuts, tried to spew fire to drive Barl away, but he dodged it all, charging forward and stabbing the sword into its eye, causing Gino immense pain. Its struggles resulted in the destruction of Barl's weapon. Fortunately, Landre joined the fight, giving her teacher a helping hand. She used dual swords to stab from above. The monster was already weakened, so it didn't take long for her to defeat it. She thanked her teacher for stalling, because thanks to him, they were able to defeat the monster. She felt a bit sorry that she was late, which is why Barl's sword was broken. As for Porta and the other 2, they were safe, so there was nothing to worry about. All 3 came out, making Barl very happy. Landre then brought up the earlier incident, which felt quite nostalgic. After resolving the situation, they brought the monster's leg back to the guild to receive their reward. The other 2 were shocked that it was a named monster. The woman said that all the credit belonged to their teacher, or else their group would have been wiped out. Barl was modest, because it was his student who delivered the final blow. The guild master was very grateful, not knowing how to repay them. Seeing the other 2 praise her teacher, Landre was also pleased, and was even invited to become an adventurer, but declined because she only liked teaching swordsmanship. Outside, the girl thought the guild master was mistaken, because her teacher shouldn't be stuck being an adventurer. Being praised so highly, he felt embarrassed. Landre also apologized for the incident, knowing that she was overpraising Barl, but it was all true because he was very strong. She was also happy to be fighting alongside her swordsmanship teacher again. Barl had to compliment her for always making the right choices, which allowed everyone to return safely. Being praised for her growth, Lysandra shyly blushed, not daring to accept those words. She remembered the image of practicing with Barl in the past, which was so much fun. The next day, Barl was taken to a blacksmith by Karuni to get a new sword. A teacher without a weapon felt awkward. She also needed to stop by, so she was happy to be going with her teacher today, along with Alucia. Although she was a bit busy, she still tried to go along, using the excuse that choosing a sword for her teacher was important, and as a commander, she definitely had to join. In addition, she was jealous of Lysandra and Karuni because they had private time with Barl, so this time she had to monopolize him. When asked about the weapon shop, Karuni smiled and said that Barl would definitely be surprised when they arrived. It was a not-so-large smithy, but the craftsmanship was top-notch. The owner was also one of Barl's disciples. He had to greet his teacher when he saw the person who taught him swordsmanship years ago. Both sides expressed their joy at not seeing each other for a long time. He was a special case at the dojo in his hometown. Vander was the oldest of the disciples, and with a passion for blacksmithing, he wanted to know how swordsmen fought so that he could forge good weapons. Although it was a bit humorous, Barl was happy to see his disciple achieve such success. When asked what they were there for today, he learned that Karuni wanted to maintain her weapon. This lovely girl specializes in short swords, but after looking at it, it was quite badly damaged, and even if it was repaired, it wouldn't be as good as before. The advice was to buy a new one. But Barl asked Karuni, "How do you feel about switching to a long sword?" Overall, it was quite comfortable, so the teacher concluded that the short sword was not suitable for her, and she had to feel the weight to fight well. In Barl's experience, a two-handed weapon was a suitable choice. After holding it, she felt quite normal, not too heavy and not too light. Being praised by her teacher, she immediately agreed to buy the new sword. And it felt great to hold this weapon, making her very happy. When asked about how to maintain it, the owner said that each type of sword had its own way of maintaining it. When it was Barl's turn to choose a weapon, Alucia spoke up, thinking that with her teacher's level, he should have one made specifically, so that he could exert his full power. He was going to refuse, since he didn't fight much and didn't need to do that. Plus, all the swords here were good ones. As soon as he finished speaking, Lysandra brought in the leg of the monster from yesterday. Meeting a rival here, the two showed their displeasure again. Barl stood in the middle to mediate and see what she was here for. The girl was hoping to forge a new sword for Barl using high-quality materials from Gino Greyel. The owner was shocked, because if this was used to forge a weapon, it would definitely be a super rare sword. Alucia didn't give in, thinking that the task of providing weapons for the instructor should belong to her knight order, and she could handle this herself, requesting the other girl to back off. Barl was speechless, not knowing how to advise the two. Lysandra said that this was what she could do to apologize to her teacher. Although Barl wasn't worried about the broken sword, she was still pondering it, and the owner also advised her teacher to accept this gift because Lysandra had already said that. Barl had no choice and agreed. Vander held the precious material in his hand, thinking that a sword forged by a named monster was unbelievable. The owner already had a plan in his head, and told his teacher to rest assured that he would make the best weapon. He asked Barl to wait another week. With that done, they were about to head back, but Karuni wanted to monopolize her teacher a little longer. The two then went to the training room to teach this girl how to use the new weapon effectively. Barl had already tried this type of weapon, so he talked about the two characteristics of this sword. The first was to swing the sword horizontally, which would take advantage of the centrifugal force. The second was to use the ricasso, which was the unsharpened part of the sword's blade. Holding it this way would change the center of gravity, and although it would be more difficult to swing the sword, it would gradually become familiar. Barl showed the girl how to swing the sword with her hips instead of just using her arms. Being taught like this, Karuni also felt nostalgic. That was the first thing he taught his student at the dojo. In the evening, Barl had a hearty meal without worrying about anything, all thanks to those cute students. On the way home, he unfortunately encountered professional pickpockets. After passing by, the girl was about to reach in and take the money, but was stopped. Barl possessed incredible reflexes, so even though she acted quickly, she was still caught in the act. To escape, the girl used fire magic to attack, forcing Barl to keep his distance. After returning to the base, which was the hideout of outlaws, she had to hand over all the money she had earned today. Seeing that it was too little, they asked if she was hiding any. The leader thought Freya wouldn't dare to do that because she was being forced to earn money, but suddenly at this time, she realized that she had dropped an important item on this side. Barl picked up the item, lamenting that he wasn't very good at dealing with fire. A few days later, Master Barl continued his private training sessions with Drought and the others. Drought had shown considerable improvement, now using feints to deceive his opponents. However, with his own exceptional reflexes, Barl easily parried and ended the sparring match. He praised Drought's progress, but Drought modestly insisted that he still needed to work harder. In addition, Karuni was also growing accustomed to combat with her new weapon. Switching to a two-handed sword was a risky proposition, but fortunately, with Barl's watchful guidance, there were no serious issues. Drought expressed his hope for Karuni's quick improvement, as the Knight's Order was sorely in need of reinforcements. When asked about the urgency, Drought revealed that a band of thieves known as the Twilight Shadows had secretly infiltrated the capital. They were working alongside the royal guards to investigate before any significant incident occurred. Once their hideout was located, Drought intended to launch an immediate assault, which was why the order needed to bolster its forces. Barl believed that everyone currently present would undoubtedly prevail, but Drought argued that overwhelming the enemy would ensure greater safety. Drought wouldn't even consider dragging his mentor, Barl, into such dangerous affairs. At this point, Barl produced the item he'd recovered a few days prior, showing it to Karuni and Drought. Karuni exclaimed over how cute the necklace was, mistaking it for a gift Barl intended to give to their captain. She even jokingly advised him to choose something a little more mature for her. Both of them were taken aback when Barl clarified that he had merely found it and had no intention of giving it away as a gift. Barl then recounted how he'd almost been pickpocketed, and how, after grabbing the culprit's hand, they'd managed to escape by using magic. He admitted that he'd been facing a lot of fire-based magic lately, which was a bit of a nuisance. Karuni found this rather odd. If someone possessed the ability to use magic, why would they resort to pickpocketing? Magic was a rare and valuable skill, and simply joining the Magic Academy would secure them funding. Both children and adults could live in the Academy's dormitories, and upon graduation, they could become accomplished mages or adventurers, allowing them to earn money without issue. Drought found that unusual as well, suggesting that perhaps the thief was using magic through an enchanted item, which would make more sense. Although such items were expensive, they could potentially be stolen. Karuni asked Barl what he planned to do with the item, and he said he would return it to its owner. Drought advised simply leaving it at the Knight's Order's reception desk, so that when someone came to claim it, it could be returned easily. Later, Barl followed Drought's advice, which put his mind at ease. What bothered him was the expression in the young thief's eyes. For someone so young to possess such a look of despondency was truly unsettling. Barl was also planning to find more permanent lodgings, but the rents were simply too high. He would have enough money to get by, but he wouldn't be able to indulge in his usual drinking habits. Just then, Freya approached, searching for her lost item. Barl recognized her immediately and struck up a conversation. Upon realizing that he was the troublesome individual from before, she scowled fiercely, seeming ready to cause trouble right there in broad daylight. Freya demanded that he return her property. But Barl advised her to calm down, as he had already turned it in at the Order's reception desk. Hearing that her item was in the possession of the Knight's Order, Freya grew worried about being arrested. Once she learned that it was deemed important, not just some trinket that she had tried to steal, she offered to retrieve it herself, arguing that it would be faster and easier than proving that the item belonged to her. Barl, having never encountered a girl with such an aggressive demeanor, felt a little intimidated. He asked for her name, but she refused to give it, and Barl cautioned her against resorting to theft again. Seeing her avert her gaze, Barl realized that Freya likely knew right from wrong, but was being forced into petty crime by her circumstances. After retrieving the item, Barl did not return it immediately. He insisted on talking things over. Due to the noise outside, Alucia came to investigate, demanding to know who the young girl was, even jokingly asking if she was Barl's illegitimate daughter. Barl reprimanded Alucia for making such an absurd remark. After they went inside and Barl explained the situation, Alucia understood. Freya, however, remained self-assured, showing no fear of arrest and claiming she hadn't actually done anything wrong. Barl agreed, pointing out that he had intervened before she could actually pickpocket him. More importantly, he didn't want her to re-offend, but she retorted that it was none of his business. Since the item belonged to her, he should simply return it. Alucia praised the girl's frankness, and that she did not lie about not intending to pickpocket someone again. Alucia then expressed her curiosity about Freya's ability to use magic without the aid of a magical implement, and suggested that she consider enrolling in the Magic Academy, as the country would provide full funding. Hearing all of this, Barl felt delighted that he had, in his own way, inspired someone to be so kind. Freya then proceeded to reveal her personal troubles, explaining that she needed to gather 5 million, not to raise a child, but to save her sister. If she could pay that sum, a certain individual claimed that he could use magic to revive her beloved sister. Upon hearing this, both Barl and Alucia immediately realized that Freya was being drawn into a scam. With the urgency stemming from lack of funds, she resorted to pickpocketing to acquire the money as quickly as possible. Barl didn't want to outright denounce the individual and shatter her hope. Alucia, understanding his reluctance, excused herself, saying that she would be back soon. With Alucia gone, Barl stayed behind, doing his best to distract Freya by offering her pastries and tea, while trying to buy some time. Seeing Freya's stomach growl loudly, the Master Swordsman fetched her a large piece of bread to eat. Freya, no longer hesitating, snatched it up, devouring it ravenously as she hadn't had anything to eat in days. Barl recounted how seeing the despondent look in Freya's eyes concerned him, and how, even as a middle-aged man, he could at least listen to her troubles, though he might not be able to provide much practical help. The two of them then formally introduced themselves, and Freya told him not to treat her like a little kid. After retrieving her necklace, Freya, putting on a happy face, made ready to leave, but at that moment, Lucy arrived. Learning that there was a talented individual here, as well as a case related to magic, Lucy expressed keen interest. After hearing the full story from Alucia, the commander of the Magic Brigade immediately expressed interest in recruiting Freya, as their forces were always lacking. Upon being introduced, Freya flatly refused to believe that Lucy was in fact more than a kid. Lucy didn't take offense, pointing out that there was another individual present who initially shared her disbelief, but now knew better than to underestimate her. To prove her capabilities, Lucy conjured a small flame to heat up the teacup, which caused Freya's eyes to widen in awe. At that point, Freya finally accepted that this was indeed the commander of the Magic Brigade. Lucy advised Freya to enroll in the Magic Academy, for even 5 million wouldn't be enough to save her sister. She went on to flatly state that resurrection magic did not exist. No matter the price paid, the dead could never be brought back to life. Barl attempted to stop Lucy from being too blunt, but she cut him off, arguing that she had to hear the truth. Freya remained steadfast in her belief that her sister could be resurrected, as she had already witnessed the phenomenon firsthand. Although only a slight movement, the man was able to make the dead move, and he demanded a sum of 5 million to bring her back to life. If, within that time, Freya could manage to earn the money, he promised that the body wouldn't decay. Upon hearing this, the commander of the Magic Brigade immediately knew it was a cheap scam. Lucy reiterated, with unwavering certainty, that resurrection magic did not exist, asking Freya whether she trusted a man who forced a child to become a pickpocket more than someone who dedicated their entire life to studying magic. Barl, feeling deeply sympathetic to Freya's circumstances, wanted to help. Lucy, especially concerned about any charlatan claiming the ability to resurrect the dead, stated that if he was lying, he was defiling the spirit of the deceased. Such scum could not be forgiven. These words prompted Freya to reveal the man's identity. Lucy wanted to confront him directly, hoping to prove her own assertions. If she was wrong, she vowed to personally give Freya 5 million so that she could save her sister herself. Alucia mentioning Twilight Shadows, an organization that has been under increasing scrutiny lately, only served to make matters more urgent. They requested that she lead them to the group's hideout, as not returning to the hideout soon would make the gang suspicious. With Freya increasingly doubtful, she reluctantly agreed. Alucia excused herself to summon reinforcements, but Lucy stopped her, as it would be too conspicuous to have the entire Knight's Order involved. For the time being, Lucy and Barl would head there first, then Alucia could follow and do whatever she felt was necessary. Ordinarily, Barl preferred to avoid such troublesome affairs, but this particular case had struck a nerve, as he hated those who would exploit children. On the way to the hideout, the three discussed Freya's background. It seemed that the two sisters had always relied on one another to survive, having never known their parents. The place she lived was full of orphans, but was also surprisingly the birthplace of many talented mages. Following Freya's directions, the two adults were led to an unremarkable location. Who would have thought that the Twilight Shadows gang was hiding in plain sight in the middle of the road? It seemed the old adage, the most dangerous place is the safest, was true in this case. As they were about to head inside, Freya warned them that the front door was always kept locked, and they had to go through the back. However, Lucy was having none of that, blasting away the front wall to announce their arrival to those inside. One of the thugs, thinking Lucy was just a child, attempted to grope her, but was promptly blasted away. The commander of the Magic Brigade declared that she had come to have a word with their leader, and proceeded to stride past them. She delegated the task of dealing with the smaller fry to the Master Swordsman. Seeing Barl brandishing a wooden sword only served to fuel their contempt. They recognized Freya as the one who had brought the cops down on them and vowed she would pay. However, those charging at Barl were summarily dispatched, and one thug was stabbed through the throat by Freya herself for being insolent. Downstairs, the leader, hearing the sounds of fighting, remained unperturbed, knowing who was coming to call. He even remarked that the esteemed guest was none other than the commander of the Magic Brigade herself. Lucy, for her part, was disgusted that this man had blasphemed magic by claiming he could perform the forbidden art of resurrection, while she could use magic innately. This man obviously had to rely on enchanted tools to do so. First, he employed ice magic, but it proved wholly ineffective. Lucy mocked him, saying he wore a lot of toys, but if that was all he had, she would be sorely disappointed. The leader then switched to gravity magic, manipulating nearby objects. This was how he had deceived Freya into believing that her sister had moved. The leader chuckled, saying, "Children are so easy to trick, huh?" Lucy, who was being telekinetically hoisted into the air, continued her counterattack, and with one serious blow managed to incapacitate the leader. Derisively, she stated that only amateurs relied on cheap tricks and toys to win against the real thing. Barl, meanwhile, had dispatched nearly all of the henchmen using his wooden sword, but the difference in skill was overwhelming. One of the remaining thugs tried to threaten Freya about her dead sister's corpse, but was immediately silenced by the leader. Alucia then came in and apprehended the leader, threatening to give him the same beating as before if he didn't tell her everything. Overcome with pain, he readily confessed that resurrection magic didn't exist. Absorbing the crushing truth, Freya was devastated. With the matter resolved, Lucy declared that she would leave, promising to send some royal guards soon to clean up the place. Barl stayed behind to find Freya's sister's corpse, but he was unable to locate it. Now knowing that resurrection magic was nothing but a false promise, Freya at least wanted to give her sister a proper burial. In an effort to comfort her, Barl stated that there were still a great many kind and compassionate people in the world who could assist her, so she didn't have to shoulder her burden alone. Freya also admitted that she could tell that Barl was angry at her, so she felt somewhat vindicated to know that he had pummeled the final thug with such ferocity. The case, however, was not yet closed. The leader possessed several superior enchanted items, indicating that he was taking orders from someone more powerful. After the scene, Lucy promised to take care of Freya, and said they would meet some other time. Just after they had parted ways, someone used magic to eliminate the evidence, causing the gang leader to explode. That magic user returned to the church and reported the news to the old man, who was happy. He stated to himself that the most important thing was to collect many corpses to create the magic of the Lord, hoarding what he needed for what he believed would be coming in the future. The next day, after finishing his training, Barl is informed by Alusia that the man they were escorting yesterday died. His body suddenly exploded, and they couldn't do anything to prevent it. Inside the corpse, they found something resembling a magic artifact. Currently, the knights are investigating, with the assistance of the Magic Guild. Barl asks about the corpses they had collected, but the remaining henchmen claim to be unaware. As a result, the location where they are being transported is currently unknown. The leader possessed many rare magic artifacts, so there's definitely someone pulling the strings. Barl finds this annoying. He wishes things had ended last night. Later, Barl goes to pick up the sword that Mr. Bander forged. This weapon took a lot of time to sharpen. Although it was arduous, creating a good product makes the blacksmith happy. Karuni compliments the sword's beauty. Barl, on the other hand, thinks it doesn't suit an old geezer like him. She disagrees, saying it suits him perfectly and wants him to try it out right away. Barl is quite eager, so he decides to try it out later when he gets home. However, as soon as they leave the alley, they run into Lucy. She has something important to discuss, so she invites Barl to come with her. Soon after, they arrive at Lucy's house. Despite her small stature, Lucy lives in a freaking huge house. When they ask about Freya, they learn that she's doing well. They are currently preparing the procedures to help her enroll in the Magic Academy, and inside, there's another old man waiting. Barl is awkward, he doesn't know who this is and is introduced to Ibroy, a priest of the Church of Spin. Upon hearing this, Barl is quite surprised because this person comes from the country next door. He greets them and gets straight to the point. The magic artifacts of the guy who exploded yesterday were all made in the neighboring kingdom. They were transferred to him through Bishop Revos. In exchange, that guy would have to collect corpses for him. And perhaps to silence this guy, they detonated a remotely controlled magic artifact. What's hard to understand is why the bishop is collecting corpses. The friend explains that their purpose seems to be to use the magic of spin. Among the magic, there is the highest level performed by the god spin, which is the resurrection of the dead. Because no one has ever witnessed it, this is considered a legend. It's also not widely publicized, and only a few people know about it. Bishop Revos is probably collecting corpses to study this magic. If everything was clean, there wouldn't be a problem. Therefore, they need to investigate and clarify everything before it goes too far. Revos is currently at the Church of Spin in the Northern District. The knights have summoned him for tomorrow. If he cooperates, that's good, but if he tries to flee the country, they have to stop him. Suddenly, Barl has a bad feeling about this. The friend also hopes that Barl can help with the matter. If the knights and the Magic Guild intervene, this will become a serious international incident. Ibroy is a bishop, so it's even harder for him to act directly. Therefore, they have to rely on Barl to help because he can act freely. Alucia understands the situation, and everything has been arranged. If Revos' crimes are confirmed, she will absolutely not forgive him for bringing unhappiness to Freya. When they ask Barl what he thinks, he agrees, figuring that they might find Freya's sister's body there. Besides, they will also pay Barl a large reward after the matter is resolved. So, he considers it like he's taking on a quest as an adventurer. As they reach the door, Freya arrives with new clothes. It seems Freya lives here and is being well cared for. Lucy also asks if she's bought everything she needed, which makes her a little embarrassed. Freya doesn't understand why everyone is treating her so well. Lucy believes it's normal for adults to take care of children. Barl agrees, and then they are reminded of the pickpocketing incident and the fact that she was still given money and allowed to go to school freely. This feeling makes Freya uneasy because she's never been cared for so much. Since everything has changed so quickly in just a few days, it's understandable that she's finding it difficult to adjust. Seeing this, Barl advises her, kids don't need to think so much. Just relax and enjoy life. Because here, no adults will lie to you or exploit you, so don't worry. The little girl still hasn't accepted it and asks if this is really okay. Barl thinks everything will be fine, so she should gradually get used to it because there's still a bright future ahead. Touched by these words, Freya is delighted and says, if I still can't forget about the attack, I'll treat you to a meal when I'm older. He's about to pat her head, but she pushes his hand away because she doesn't like being treated like a child. With that, Barl heads home to prepare for his actions that night. As Lucy predicted, when these guys refuse to cooperate at all and try to escape that night, Barl has to rush to intercept them. However, a young man discovers his actions. He witnessed everything from the previous incident when they defeated that night owl and guessed that Barl would come here, so he was here to stop them. He asks them where they're going when they were summoned for the next day. The man doesn't want to talk much and immediately has his people surround them, all of them using magic to enhance themselves. Thanks to that, their speed has increased significantly, which slightly surprises Barl. Though he'd heard of this spell before, he didn't expect it to be so effective. It's been a while since he used a real sword to slash someone like this, but if he doesn't act, he'll be in danger, so he tries his best. Barl dodges and then counterattacks, simply slashing through the armor of those guys. Other guys arrive one after another, but Barl's students stop them. Alucia arrives to help, and Karuni is there too, making Barl worry and ask why the two of them came since it's dangerous. The girl pretends, we just happened to be passing by. Thanks to their help, everything becomes easier. The enhancement magic of these guys is strong, but its fatal weakness is that the activation time is very short. And after using it, their bodies are weakened, so the two girls ask the swordmaster to go on ahead. Leave this to us. With that, Barl runs into the church, but Bishop Revos blocks his way. He chants an enhancement spell for his subordinate behind him while animating the corpses. This is what he calls a miracle, which makes Barl feel disgusted. Among them, there's someone who looks a lot like Freya, proving that this is her sister. Since there's no other choice, he has to slash at the zombies attacking him. After removing their heads, the corpses are purified and disappear. The last one is Freya's sister, who he releases in the gentlest way possible, much to his regret. Her body vanishes before his eyes, and Barl is only able to keep the necklace that looks like the one her younger sister has, along with his tears of regret. The opponent then begins to fight with tremendous power. He's completely different from the others. Barl is overwhelmed in both speed and power, so he's quickly injured. This is the strongest opponent he's faced since moving here. But he can't forgive someone who trifles with other people's lives. Barl seriously launches an attack. After dodging, Barl lands a hit, surprising the opponent. Revos yells, I've received divine power, so don't think you can win. To further enhance himself, he stabs his hand with a dagger, a kind of magic artifact, to boost his power to the limit. The speed of his attacks increases, making it impossible for the swordmaster to block everything. He defends the vital areas of his body. Although he's overwhelmed in terms of attack ability, Barl's fighting skills are far superior, and he doesn't want to lose this fight. With that determination, Barl calmly tricks his opponent into attacking. The attack barely grazes his hand, it was extremely dangerous. If he'd been a second slower, his opponent's sword would have pierced him. In contrast, the enemy loses his balance and immediately receives a powerful slash to the arm, shattering the armor on his chest. However, he hasn't fallen and still tries to hold on. Revos continues to fight wildly, but his slashed arm can't handle it and shatters. His whole body seems to have been slashed hundreds of times. It seems this is a side effect of using magic artifacts to enhance the body. Barl advises his opponent to stop, but he still comes forward, saying, if I fall for the sake of divine power, so be it. He tries to swing his sword again, but his entire body loses strength and he collapses. He doesn't understand why his opponent had to go this far. He smiles and says, Barl will never understand, before rolling over and dying. Ending the intense battle, Barl goes outside and sees that his two students have successfully captured Bishop Revos. Alucia is worried about her injured teacher. Fortunately, the cuts on him aren't too deep. They still claim they just happened to be passing by and weren't intentionally there. Barl turns to ask the old man about toying with corpses. The man smiles and says, even if you arrest me, nothing will change. Miracles require bloodshed, that's essential for creating a great legacy. He talks about saving the world, which Barl doesn't understand. The next day, Barl meets with his friend Lucy to tell her everything about yesterday. For now, they'll be taking a statement to find out the bishop's motives. Lucy then takes Barl to see the reward she promised. It's a fairly spacious house with a yard and everything. Knowing that Barl usually lives in a motel, she thinks this is the most appropriate reward. When they go inside, they see Freya there, cleaning. Lucy also asks about her decision. She's still going to enroll, but they are discussing whether or not to let her live here since she needs a guardian, like a parent, to enroll. Someone living alone like Barl would be perfect. He's a bit uneasy about this. Lucy doesn't explain what happened yesterday but tells her that Barl did everything he could for her. So, she has to decide for herself whether she wants to live with Lucy or with Barl. Freya trusts Barl, so she decides to live here. The Master Swordsman doesn't have a choice and just smiles and accepts it. At least he won't have to pay rent anymore. After a few days living in the new house, Barl felt extremely satisfied because it had everything he needed, from the garden to the spacious bathroom. Since he had only moved in about 5 days ago, he still wasn't quite used to it. Normally, Barl would be the one cooking, while Freya took care of the cleaning. Although they lived together, they hadn't shared many heartfelt conversations yet. Barl was quite surprised by her decision to live with an old geezer like him. When asked about her hobbies and food preferences, the girl simply replied, "As long as I can eat it." As for doing laundry, Freya didn't want the male lead touching it. Her habit was to soak, wring, and hang the clothes to dry without using detergent. Freya was still worried about everything around her, even asking if she could use the bathroom, which left Barl speechless. He didn't understand why she would ask that since it was also her home. Hearing that, Freya said she wouldn't ask again next time. It was probably because in her previous life with those bad people, she always had to be so careful, so it was understandable. To become closer to the girl, the male lead often took her out to play. Since living together harmoniously and trusting each other was quite difficult, he wanted to break down the cold barrier between them. As Freya had never tasted anything so delicious before, she was also content. Next, Barl took her to see a famous play. He was a country bumpkin, so he had never been inside such a place. Sitting until the evening, they both thought the story was pretty good, and the actors were also interesting. The next day, Freya had to go to school to familiarize herself with the place before enrolling. She had initially planned to go alone, but her teacher still went with her to put her mind at ease. Since he was currently her guardian, he couldn't just ignore her. As expected, the school specializing in training talented mages was very vast. Entering, a teacher stood up to welcome them. She introduced herself as Facel, the guide at the academy. Barl had to admit that stepping in here, he felt overwhelmed and didn't know where to go, so having a teacher guide them was great. Freya, who wasn't used to interacting with strangers, also seemed tense. Inside, they were asked about who introduced them. The male lead said it was Lucy, the commander of the Magic Corps. The students there were also very polite, greeting the teachers as soon as they saw them. The children studying there could all become mages leading the country in the future, so the training environment had to have all the necessary elements. They also focused on teaching etiquette. Barl thought it would take Freya a lot of time to get used to this place. And because she was personally introduced by the principal, she wouldn't need to take an entrance exam. When asked about choosing a major, the two of them didn't know anything. Facel explained that mages were divided into 5 different majors. Freya could use fire magic, so she would lean towards attack abilities. There were also other types like healing and enhancement. When asked if they wanted to stay in the school dormitory, the two of them still couldn't make a decision. Because the place accepted many students from rural areas, it naturally had a dormitory for the children to eat, sleep, and rest comfortably. They were taken on a tour that left them jaw-dropped because the living quarters for the students were very spacious, and the dining area was also clean and beautiful. It could be said that everything was incredibly wonderful, even more comfortable than at home. After leaving, the two of them had to admit that the dormitory was great. The male lead thought it would be better if the girl lived there, but with her personality, he was afraid she would have a hard time fitting in with friends. Barl thought it was best to let her live with him for a while until she got used to it. When asked what she wanted to eat for lunch, Freya replied coldly, making him even more worried. Nearby, they saw sausages for sale, and the two of them went in to eat. Coincidentally, Lysandra was also there, so they invited her to sit at the same table. Lately, she had been on missions, so she didn't know about the girl in front of her. The teacher had to thank her a lot for the new sword, and at the same time, he told her about the incidents related to Freya. Knowing that he was living together and acting as a guardian for the girl, Lysandra was shocked. She was also jealous, but well, it was a decision from her teacher, so she wouldn't interfere. When asked about her life lately, the former student said that there had been many monster hunts recently. They had to do so because a delegation from another place was coming to visit. It was an annual meeting of allies, and the Adventurers Guild was responsible for providing protection during the meeting. After eating, Barl let Freya go home first because he still had to go to the Knight's Order for work. He hoped that Lysandra could get acquainted with this girl since she didn't have any friends. She reminded her that after entering the Magic Academy, she would have to compete with the best, so she should try not to embarrass her teacher. The girl also said that she knew how strong the old geezer was, making Lysandra unhappy. They almost argued, forcing Barl to mediate. Since it was also true, the girl calmed down to apologize because she considered her teacher the most wonderful person, and she couldn't accept someone calling Barl an old geezer. Looking into those eyes, Lysandra knew that the girl understood a lot, so she said goodbye and promised to meet again later. In her estimation, the girl was a little rude but very straightforward and would go far in the future. Since he couldn't decide whether to let Freya live in the dormitory or with him, the male lead asked Alucia for her opinion. Hearing that, she was very surprised and jealous. Karuni thought that living in the dormitory was the #1 choice because it didn't waste time traveling, and the food was also delicious. Facel once said that the dormitory was her savior, so it must be great. What he was afraid of was whether the girl could fit in with friends or not. Alucia also thought that the best way was to let Freya overcome her comfort zone to grow up, because protecting her forever wouldn't be good. Alucia agreed with this because she didn't like another girl living with her teacher. In the afternoon, to be sure, he went to Lucy for advice. She also admitted that it would be more convenient in the dormitory. Facel also showed up and said that since her home was far away, living at school was the most convenient. Also, she would become Freya's personal trainer, according to Lucy. Because there was a shortage of talent, that girl would definitely receive the best treatment. Since she was about to become a teacher, Facel also demanded that the teacher praise her. The male lead smiled and said she was too good. Since everyone was advising him to let Freya live at school, Barl was a little sad and left. Facel thought the teacher was really strange today. Lucy thought that he must be worried about trivial matters. As a guardian, Barl thought he could become a parental figure. Before, when Freya chose to live here, he was very happy, but today he saw that she also liked the dormitory. As a guardian, he naturally wanted to prioritize the girl's choice. After returning home, the girl called the old geezer to look at the place where the strange noise was coming from. Since it was a wooden house, it was easy for mice to burrow through. He gently lifted the cabinet to the side and found a huge hole. The mice ran out from there, forcing Barl to chase after them. Freya thought it was okay if it was just mice, but Barl didn't want that. In case they bit and damaged clothes and things, then that would be the end of it. In addition, mice were also disease carriers, so he had to chase them away. The girl said that she wasn't that weak, and she always had mice back when she lived in the southern district. Barl seriously said that he wouldn't let her live that kind of life again. This touched Freya. The mice were chased all over the place, but they still wouldn't surrender to the point where he overturned the table to catch one. Because he couldn't guess what the mouse was thinking, Barl's reflexes didn't work. Fortunately, Freya gave some supporting fire in the last phase, so they managed to catch it. Because she was embarrassed, the girl left to feel at ease. Barl went to buy a ball used to repel mice so that next time if they crawled in, they wouldn't dare to stay. The male lead then went to cook, telling the girl to go read a book or do something. Then she asked to help. The teacher gladly agreed, asking Freya to peel the vegetables. Honestly, living alone like this was also sad. Before, Barl always lived with his family and the children at the dojo, so every day was fun. Although he wanted the girl to be here, he still had to choose the best for her. Anyway, he would come back here when there was a holiday or New Year's. Sitting down for dinner, he also complimented that because of her, he got it done very quickly. Hearing that, the girl said that next time, she would learn more about cooking to help. Barl thought that was very good because she would need it in the future. Then the girl asked to learn right now, which surprised him because the dormitory already prepared food. Freya looked surprised and said that no one said they would be living at school. Her choice was to live at home. The male lead tried to persuade her because there was a lot of delicious food there, and it would save her a lot of traveling and she could play with people her age. In the end, Freya still chose to stay here with Barl, so starting tomorrow, she would learn how to cook so that she could be useful to him. Hearing these words, Barl was much happier. In reality, for Freya, it was enough to have a warm meal and didn't necessarily have to eat something delicious, so she often responded to the male lead's questions coldly. A few days after finishing training with everyone, Barl was approached by Alucia, who said, "This matter directly affects your future, sensei, so it's extremely important." She acted mysterious and then asked to go buy new clothes for him, leaving him completely bewildered. The reason was that a delegation would be visiting soon. Lysandra had already mentioned this previously, so he already knew. Upon hearing this, Alucia became annoyed that little sneak had already told him. In any case, each side would have different responsibilities in welcoming the delegation. The Night Squad would be providing protection because the people on the other side were connected to the kingdom's political and diplomatic affairs. That pupil of his requested that her teacher assist with the task of protecting these people, and even wanted to introduce him to nobles from both countries. Karuni and Drought were completely in favor of this. They also hoped that their teacher's name would become widely known beyond the borders. Alucia knew that Barl didn't like being in the spotlight, but he was currently the instructor of the Night Squad. Because he had already been accepted by the royal family, Barl was an indispensable part of meeting these people. Hearing this, the teacher had no choice but to agree. Karuni thought that everything would be simple as usual, so Sensei didn't need to worry. The vice captain heard this and demanded that they not be careless or let their guard down. Alucia then got to the main point, which was to buy new clothes for her teacher. It wouldn't do to meet royalty dressed like that, he at least needed a suitable outfit. The members of the night squad could wear armor or uniforms, but Barl wasn't a member, so he couldn't dress like them. He thought he'd pick something out himself when he had time, but she objected. Alucia said that Sensei still wasn't familiar with all the stores in the capital. Therefore, she would be his guide since she knew exactly where to find appropriate clothes. She requested that the male lead set aside some time the next afternoon so they could go shopping together. Barl agreed, making the younger girl very happy. He, on the other hand, wasn't thrilled, because it was embarrassing to have that girl fussing over a middle-aged man like him. Kuruni, however, thought the captain seemed very excited. Drought chimed in, saying that Sensei was her teacher, after all, but there was probably another reason too. That evening, Barl returned home and was given a box of clothes. He opened it to find that it was all women's clothing, probably for Freya. The letter inside said it was to thank him for what they've done. As the letter goes on, based on the style of writing, Barl thought it was from Ibroy. The girl, on the other hand, thought that these outfits didn't suit her at all. The teacher smiled and said that they suited her just fine. Besides, there are so many outfits that, let her try and choose what's best. The two then ate dinner together as usual. During the meal, Barl mentioned that Alucia had invited him to go shopping for clothes. Freya remembered that she was also the captain of the night squad. Barl wanted to invite this kid to experience it together, but was refused. Hearing that, he tried to convince her, saying that Alucia was very fond of children, so there was no need to be shy. Freya was still resolute in her refusal, leaving Barl completely baffled. The next day, as promised, Alucia arrived wearing casual clothes that looked very pretty. The teacher was completely stunned, as this was the first time he'd seen her dressed like that. She smiled and said that it would be a little inconvenient to go shopping in uniform, so this was more appropriate. Barl complimented her, saying that the outfit suited her very well, which made her blush intensely. Kuruni and Drought, having witnessed everything, were extremely curious about what the captain was going to do, so they decided to follow them. Their shopping destination was the Central District, the most developed part of the capital. The stores there all sold high-end items, which was appropriate for meeting esteemed guests. The sword saint from the countryside felt awkward, as he wasn't suited for this sort of thing. Upon entering a store, the owner recognized Alucia and greeted them enthusiastically. Glancing around, Barl became slightly worried because all the clothes were fancy and expensive. He didn't have a good sense of style himself, so he would probably leave the choosing to Alucia. Just then, Alucia found a beautiful outfit and showed it to her teacher. Just looking at it made Barl's heart skip a beat, because it was too flamboyant and didn't suit him at all. The owner was quick to praise the choice, saying that it suited Barl's type of person very well. The teacher knew that the shopkeeper was just saying that to make a sale. So he put forward a different choice. Barl realized that if he let that girl pick, it would be too dangerous, so he had to choose an outfit himself. Looking around, he spotted something suitable. It looked a little plain, but that was what he wanted to avoid standing out. Alucia respected her teacher's decision, so they bought that outfit. After leaving the store, they continued to visit other shops. Since they hadn't eaten anything yet, she invited her teacher out for a meal. Kuruni was delighted to see their cheerful atmosphere. She had never seen their captain smile like that before. Upon entering a restaurant, Barl thought the place was incredibly flashy, even the food was elaborately prepared and decorated. The taste was important, but presentation was key. Alucia's intentions were now clear, they had gone shopping, and now they were having a meal together. It was nothing short of a date, which made her so happy that she giggled. The other two, who were watching from afar, were shocked, as they never saw those kinds of expressions from her on a regular day. Kuruni thought that they must be on a real date, and Drought jokingly asked if what they were doing also counted as a date, but received a firm denial. Having bought everything they needed, it had gotten dark. Barl thanked his junior very much for all the fun and interesting experiences. Alucia admitted that she had wanted to go out to eat together like this for a long time. She remembered that time when Sensei had invited her out, but they ultimately couldn't make it. Only today had that wish finally come true. The Master Swordsman then departed, leaving his pupil to watch him go. Seeing the captain standing and staring after him, Drought took the initiative to approach her. He apologized for following her around all day. She didn't seem to mind, asking him what he wanted to say, anyway. The young man, then curious, asked what her relationship was like with Barl the teacher. The scene shifts to the next day. Everything was proceeding as normal. Kuruni had to apologize for what happened the previous day. After seeing that her senior had gone to meet the captain, she got scared of being scolded and had run off beforehand. Since she was the one who had invited them to follow in the first place, she felt a little guilty. He said it was okay and Alucia showed up at that moment. Seeing her, the younger girl immediately ran away to avoid being questioned about having followed her the day before. Fortunately, Drought didn't reveal anything. Remembering the question from the previous evening, he was shocked. The captain stated that she wanted her teacher to be happy, and then simply left without providing a direct answer. Today, she also wanted to challenge Barl to a duel. No one there doubted the teacher's abilities. She wanted to face Barl before meeting with royalty. Even though it was impossible to know who would win, Drought bet that the Master Swordsman would force their captain to give it her all. This match would also be to demonstrate the teacher's abilities. The vice-captain, out of curiosity, asked what her true goal was. Alucia honestly admitted that if she won, she would finally reveal the wish she had been holding in her heart for so long. Hearing that, the young man realized that it might be a confession of love. Karuni was later also told about it and was extremely shocked. Their captain was beautiful and intelligent, strict but also very gentle, and she wondered if any man could possibly refuse a confession from such a woman. Just then, Barl arrived, so he was immediately roped into the wager. Hearing the invitation to duel, the teacher remained calm. Alucia said that because the delegation was arriving soon, she needed to do some extra training. If possible, she wanted Barl to help, so he agreed. The match between the two strongest individuals drew everyone in attendance. It had been years since they had had a training match like this. Now that girl was the captain of the night squad, Barl thought that he had to fight with all his might or he would lose. At the very least, he wanted to help Alucia train. The beautiful girl then asked if the teacher knew what people called her. Although she was a little arrogant, she had the nickname Goddess of Swift Swords, the person with the fastest strikes in the capital. As soon as she began, she proved that this title was well deserved. Although he managed to block it, Barl was shocked by the speed of the attack. Alucia also praised him, because normally, people would be defeated by her very first move. Knowing that she was serious, he tried his best to counterattack. Normally, when initiating a technique, a person would show some kind of tell. But not Alucia, she would just instantly appear in thrust, truly living up to her title of Goddess of Speed. Both sides were completely focused, unleashing incredibly powerful blows. It felt as if Alucia had trained incredibly hard to get to where she was today. Despite being busy with her desk work, her strength was unbelievable. Very quickly, the teacher took some hits, thinking to himself how amazing his student was. Since he didn't want to lose, he tried his best to win, because if that happened, that girl would only become even stronger. Alucia was very happy to have seen her teacher's masterful swordsmanship. In return, Barl saw the wonderful techniques that she had developed after leaving the dojo. It was still unclear who would win this battle, but the captain of the night squad was noticeably more proactive than her master. Barl's fighting style was defense and counterattack, making full use of his natural reflexes. Karuni really wanted her commander to win, so that she could express her feelings. However, it felt as though the teacher wanted to maintain their current relationship more. In a brief moment, Barl finally figured out the secret to his pupil's illusory movement technique. The speed wasn't absolute, it was just that Alucia used her knees too well, concealing her movements. However, even knowing that, it was difficult to counterattack, it felt impossible to win head-on. The swordmaster came up with a plan, first luring her in by feigning an opening. Seeing this, Alucia didn't miss the opportunity to strike. But, unexpectedly, the girl was grabbed by her collar and slammed straight into the ground by her teacher. And just like that, the match ended, with Barl claiming victory. If this were a real battle, there would be no rules, so this victory was recognized. Besides, there was no one here strong enough to throw their captain to the ground like that, and certainly no one that had a chance of keeping up with that girl's speed. Barl praised his student's swordsmanship, which was also very beautiful. But, he did not want to imply that all opponents would let you to just the best to keep to use of the sword, from the beginning to the end. That was what Barl wanted his pupil to remember. Alucia smiled wryly and thanked him, but inside, she felt sad that she still hadn't been able to express her feelings. The other two then went over to check on them. When asked if she was planning on confessing after winning, she feigned ignorance, saying that she just wanted to ask Sensei to go shopping with her again. The naive Karuni genuinely believed that and smiled. Drought, being more perceptive, knew that the commander really wanted to express her feelings. She still claimed that she wanted her teacher to be happy, and that it would be wonderful if she could become his wife, but it didn't necessarily have to be her, she would accept any girl who could make Barl happy. That evening, after returning home, Barl told Freya about the match today. Although he had won, it was a close call, so he wasn't feeling particularly proud. It was great to be able to fight to the best of his ability against his student. The girl thought that perhaps that older sister was trying to get him to notice her more. It was strange to be so humble even after defeating the captain of the night squad. This kid was quite perceptive and was about to say something more, but was cut off. Barl understood that Freya was alluding to the romantic feelings between them, but that was impossible. First, she was a student, and second, there was a large age gap. Hearing that, Freya thought he was really old-fashioned, because who was afraid of an age gap these days? The next day, they prepared food and drinks as usual. Occasionally, Barl would lightly sip a cool beer for refreshment. Freya, curious, wondered what it tasted like. He said drinking it at the bar was cool, while drinking it at home felt incredibly relaxing. Freya noticed a chip in his mug and asked about it, learning he had accidentally dropped it while washing it the other day. Overall, it wasn't affected and still worked well. Today, Freya went to school to pick up her supplies for classes. Inside were a uniform and spellbooks. All items were borrowed, so they would have to be returned after she finished studying. She was quite excited to start school next week. Suddenly, the sword master realized something was missing. The other day, during their visit, everyone had school bags, but Freya didn't. She didn't mind, thinking carrying her current bag was fine. Barl, however, disagreed and wanted to get her a proper school bag. The scene shifts to Lysandra, who had been summoned by the guildmaster for a mission. It seemed they were trying to capture some creature, but it was proving difficult. A platinum rank adventurer team was already tracking it, but they feared they wouldn't be able to succeed. They needed her abilities for a good outcome. Lysandra frankly stated she wasn't sure she could help. Despite this, the guildmaster still wanted her assistance. Just then, someone came looking for Lysandra. So she went to meet them. In another development, Barl went to a store specializing in school bags to look around. He had never bought such an item before. Most were made from monster materials and were very expensive. The seller, realizing he was buying a school bag for a girl, showed him a suitable model. Unfortunately, the price was too steep for an old geezer to afford. Looking around, he saw a few cheaper options, but they weren't attractive. Barl wanted to buy a gift for Freya, so he was hesitant. Finally, it was late afternoon, and he still couldn't decide. A good bag would last several years, so it would be expensive. At his current salary, he could afford it, but it would impact his living expenses. More importantly, he needed to save for the future in case anything happened. On his way home, he met Lysandra, who was very happy to see him. Asking why she looked so troubled, he learned she was on a rather dangerous mission. She hadn't figured out a way to complete it, which was why she looked like this. Meeting Sensei here is truly the savior of my life. Though a bit selfish, she wanted the swordmaster's help, as it would greatly increase their chances of success. Initially, he intended to refuse, thinking if even she found it difficult, how could he do it? But knowing there would be a reward, Barl asked for more details. As a result, the next morning, the two set off directly on the mission. This mission involved capturing a good horse alive. It would be a gift for royalty from another land. Lysandra had already obtained permission from the night squad to ask for her teacher's help, so today they could work comfortably. The most frustrating thing for her was having to bow before Alucia. Barl also had to thank her because he actually needed money to buy some things. Hearing this, she was very happy to be able to help, stating that someone else had come looking for work at her place yesterday too. Upon arrival, other adventurers reported that they had surrounded the entire area, confirming the horse was cornered in the forest ahead. They had set traps, but none had been sprung. Lysandra instructed them to focus on guarding the perimeter while she went inside to approach. Their equipment included ropes and nets. Barl wondered, what kind of horse requires the elites of the Adventurers Guild to capture it? She explained it was a snow-white horse, incredibly rare. A gift for royalty must be of this caliber to be worthy. In the past, he had hunted monsters in the countryside but had never captured one alive, so he was a bit worried. Plus, its ability to escape platinum rank adventurers proved it must be very strong. After checking the traps again, they still saw no signs. The entire area showed no traces, indicating the horse was very cunning. Someone had requested this job before, but no one was strong enough to complete it. Honestly, Lysandra wasn't confident enough herself, but having her teacher along reduced the burden. Arriving at a water source, they found horse tracks nearby, and a stream not far off. She decided to ambush it there. This horse was smart enough to avoid all traps, but it was a species that needed to drink a lot of water, so this was a reasonable approach. On the side, she also asked about his current life with Freya. He said it was better than at first, but girls of that age were truly hard to understand. Lysandra noted that he still interacted with the kids at the dojo. He agreed, but said living together as a family was different. Remembering that time, she also used to live with Barl. Barl said that back then, she was still young, and having grandparents living with them made it less awkward. Lysandra affirmed that Freya was very kind, and surely everything would be fine. Upon reaching the location, both found it ideal for an ambush. When the target appeared, she would run behind to shoot a warning, while he would be in front to capture it alive. Horses were very afraid of being attacked from behind, so this was the best method. The arrowheads she used were made of cloth, so there was no fear of injuring the animal. Thus, the pair split into two directions to stake out. After a moment of silence, the white horse finally appeared. Barl had to admit this creature was truly beautiful. No wonder people wanted to offer it to royalty. Lysandra was also in position, looking over at her teacher, who was ready. She immediately drew her bow and shot. The horse, startled, frantically plunged forward. Seeing this, Barl intended to use a rope to disable its legs, but it instead leaped straight over him. It was truly unbelievable. They were forced to pursue it on foot. Fortunately, the mountainous terrain prevented the horse from running at full speed. Barl tried a second time with his net. However, that horse was incredibly cunning, dodging to the side to keep running, even dragging his teacher along. It was quite annoyed with these two, so it turned back to taunt them. Lysandra, fuming, used a lasso to try and capture it but was simply dodged. Chasing it to a cliff, both sides were exhausted, so this would be the decisive move. Lysandra leaped first, using the light reflected from her sword to intimidate it. The plan was for it to run back towards Barl. However, the horse played a different game, jumping straight across to the other side of the cliff. Just as she was about to mock these two, the ground where it stood suddenly collapsed. There was no saving it. Barl rushed forward, ensuring the safety of both the horse and his reward. Fortunately, there was water below, so for now, both the person and the horse were alive. The horse was quite annoyed with Barl for chasing it, leading to this situation. Barl called for a truce to find a way to cross the river. Otherwise, both would be lost. The horse understood and let him figure out a way. Climbing up was impossible, and crossing the rushing water, one slip meant meeting their ancestors. The white horse was also scared but had no other choice. Barl used his sword to cut down trees to form a bridge across the river. Slowly, both sides crossed. How on earth did the male lead still trip? Fortunately, the horse behind him held him up, so they crossed safely. Just then, Lysandra arrived at a furious speed. It was estimated that to travel from upstream to downstream, she had to run faster than a horse. It seemed she had given her best because she was worried about her teacher. After rescuing the horse from danger, it grew quite fond of Barl. The mission was now complete. They brought the horse back to the guildmaster, which made him very happy. The request from royalty greatly impacted the guild, so completing it like this would benefit them financially. The reward was also given to him. Thanks to the sword master, today's mission was very smooth. Lysandra then said she was very jealous of Freya for living with her teacher and getting so many things. Despite this, she still supported Freya. Barl didn't understand why she was suddenly jealous of Freya. He still didn't realize that Lysandra also liked him very much. They agreed to meet another time, as he now had to go buy a school bag for Freya. Later, he returned home with a new and unusual gift. He noticed that the other girl also came home late today. He didn't know where she had been. Seeing the school bag meant for her, Freya looked very happy. She had thought she didn't need one, but this was truly something she liked. After trying it on, it fit perfectly, so Freya thanked him. In return, Freya also had a gift for the swordmaster, a new ceramic mug. This wasn't stolen, she had earned money by working part-time to buy it. It turned out Freya had approached Lysandra for help. After being introduced to dishwashing, she had earned enough money to buy this new mug. The old mug was chipped, and people said drinking from this type would taste much better. Hearing this, Barl tried it and found the flavor completely different. It was much cooler than the old mug. He always seemed happy when drinking, so Freya wanted her guardian to enjoy it more. Since she would be going to school soon, she wouldn't be able to help with housework as before. At least in her free time. She wanted to earn money to buy him something. Hearing this, the sword master was moved to tears because the girl was so kind. The scene shifts to the next week. They went to school like a father and daughter. Usually, there would be a car to pick them up, but Freya felt awkward being escorted like this. Later, at the training room, Karuni saw her teacher looking happy and asked what was wrong. He smiled and said today was a special day. Alucia then arrived and announced that the Holy Knights of the Spin Church had arrived. They needed to greet them before the royalty from the other side arrived. The Spin Knight was the one who handled the bishop's case last time. Since he still didn't know their true intentions, Barl wanted to ask them. Surprisingly, upon arrival, one of the two Holy Knights turned out to be his disciple. Rose happily ran up to greet her teacher, making Alucia boil with rage because yet another rival had appeared to cling to her teacher. To make matters worse, this girl even claimed to be his beloved student. The sudden appearance of Rose put Barl in an awkward position, as her personality was a bit much. Alucia, beside him, was seething, continuously calling out to her teacher. Rose, he recalled, had studied at Barl's dojo several years ago. Although she was only there for a year and a half, Rose's abilities were undeniable. Rose seemed overly eager, pressing closer and thanking her teacher for taking care of her before. The captain of the night squad was fuming, only a step away from jumping in and acting jealous. They all went inside to talk. Barl was surprised to learn that Rose was the vice captain of the Holy Knights. Rose expressed gratitude to God for their reunion. The young man beside her was also surprised that Alucia was Barl's student. Drought said that his teacher was someone who specialized in training beautiful women, and he was also happy to see everyone succeed. Alucia realized that another member of the Holy Knights was still missing. The young man on the other side said it was a long story. Bringing Rose here first was also to give her a chance to get acquainted with the place. Since Rose had never been here before, she would stay for a few days to get used to it. Hearing this, Alucia immediately wanted to become her guide but was refused. Rose preferred to be taken around by Barl. Suddenly glared at, Barl wanted to go home immediately. The next day, right after finishing his training, the Master Swordsman met Rose at the gate. Rose wanted to meet Barl, so she wore casual clothes. Since it had been a long time since they last met, she wanted to talk a bit and take him on a tour, which wasn't a bad idea. Barl knew this would happen and accepted. Along the way, Rose said that as soon as she left the dojo, she was invited to become a holy knight. Someone had scolded her for not using her swordsmanship talent to serve the country. As a result, she became a vice captain as she was now. Despite this, her personality was quite restless. She only liked to travel and live a relaxed life. Barl thought his current job was good, but was scolded. "You haven't done it, how would you know?" She recounted how wonderful her training time with her teacher was. However, when she saw the children playing nearby, Rose suddenly felt a pang of sadness. When asked about Barl's parents, she learned that both were still living well in their hometown. The pair continued to explore the city. Rose felt like living here and asked her teacher to let her stay with him. Hearing this, Barl was terrified because he already had one child at home. Adding this girl would surely exhaust him. Rose had a special quality that attracted those around her. If combined with Freya, they would probably get along, but living together might be difficult. The two then said goodbye because they still had work to do. Barl himself went to the clothing store from before to pick up the newly made outfit. For the upcoming important day, he would have to wear this to serve as a bodyguard for the royal family. The total cost was 65,000, while the countryside swordsman had never spent more than 10,000 on an outfit before. Arriving home, Freya was also shocked by Barl's new look. Barl said they had finished tailoring it, so he just wore it home. When asked if it suited him, Freya turned away and said it was okay. Spending so much money on this outfit only to receive indifference made him a little disappointed. He expected more praise. This time, Freya didn't have much to study, so she still helped with cooking. She whispered that this outfit was truly cool. Having gotten used to cooking, any dish she made tasted very good. When asked about school, she said that lately, her classmates had been dragging her everywhere. The Master Swordsman thought that was good. It was time to get to know her friends gradually. Besides, people would only take her out if they liked her. Freya complained that the school was too large and that moving around was exhausting. Every day, she had to carry piles of magic books, and each one weighed several kilograms. Who could endure that? Hearing stories about school from the little one, Barl was quite happy. It seemed that Freya was gradually integrating into the community. The difficulty was that she was still somewhat illiterate, so she couldn't understand the knowledge in the books. Barl knew how to read and write, so he was offered to teach her a little. He immediately agreed, saying he would make time to teach when he was free. The next day, the entire night squad gathered to hear Alucia's instructions. The Grand Prince of the allied country would be visiting for 3 days starting today. They and the Holy Knights would have to ensure the safety of the prince and their own princess. Alucia clearly assigned tasks to each group. Barl optimistically thought that everything would go smoothly. A little later, they were introduced to Princess Salasia. Knowing that Barl was the special instructor of the night squad, she greeted him, having heard a lot from Alucia. Immediately after, Prince Glenn and Rose's team also arrived. The prince seemed to like the princess. Their relationship was also very good. Salasia was praised for being extremely beautiful and was pleased. Hearing these sweet words, Barl guessed that they might get married in the future. The couple then began their tour of the city. The escort plan for them was also carried out by Alucia. Barl was arranged to sit in a separate carriage to act as bait, distracting any unexpected attacks. Rose, sitting beside him, smiled and said, "I'll go with you, sensei," leaving him speechless. Being so enthusiastic even while on duty is truly unbelievable. The royal procession passed through the streets, with the night squad constantly on guard on both sides, preparing for any unforeseen incidents. All alleys and corners were blockaded. Suddenly, Glenn wanted to stop to buy a gift for the princess. Alucia, having no other choice, had to agree. This unexpected stop was not part of the plan and attracted many citizens to watch. Barl went outside and saw everyone curious about what the foreign royalty would be like. After seeing the princess, everyone immediately cheered and welcomed her. The captain on the other side reminded the prince not to do anything unnecessary, as it could put him in danger. He had to apologize and promise to try his best. As for Barl, he suddenly sensed something from the crowd and became worried. He hoped it was just his imagination. Later, the couple went to a luxurious place for a meal. The surroundings were very safe, so the teacher went to talk to Alucia, saying that he had sensed murderous intent earlier. It had disappeared quickly, so he wasn't sure. Nevertheless, their job was to provide absolute protection, so they still had to remain vigilant. Drought immediately repositioned the formation to be ready for any situation. After finishing their meal, the Grand Prince and Princess stood up to greet the citizens. At that moment, figures in black appeared and launched an attack. The best warriors immediately joined the battle. Barl ran after them, but suddenly sensed that these people had no murderous intent. It turned out they were just a diversion. The real assassins had climbed down from the rooftops. Barl told Alusia to be careful of these individuals. She had already ordered the target to be moved inside for safety. The other side was very well prepared. As soon as they landed, they released smoke everywhere to limit visibility. Under these conditions, they would have a significant advantage. In terms of strength, they were all powerful. Moreover, their swords were poisoned, making them even harder to deal with. Alusia wanted to find the mastermind, so she ordered not to kill them. Drought fought one of them but unfortunately got some powder in his eyes, which made them sting. Barl fought an opponent who knew both swordsmanship and hand-to-hand combat, which surprised him a little. Using his reflexes, the Master Swordsman dodged the dangerous blows. Both sides exchanged blows, but in the end, Barl still won. The vice-captain had a tougher time. Fortunately, she had been trained extensively by Barl recently, so she was still able to fight even with limited visibility. Luring her opponent into range, Drought unleashed a decisive ultimate move, successfully cutting down the enemy. Alusia was quite surprised that the lesson from her teacher the other day could be applied so readily. Her opponent tried to grab her cloak, but she was vigilant and didn't let herself be knocked down. She then struck the assassin's body many times, causing him to collapse on the spot. The captain of the Holy Knights used overwhelming power to crush her opponent. However, when she unmasked him, she looked surprised. As a result, she let him escape. Rose also seemed to sense something from the man in front of her. Without hesitation, she decisively stabbed the opponent directly in the head. The mist cleared, allowing Barl to see this scene, which surprised him. Because her fighting style was counterattacking defense, the fact that she went for the kill showed that she had changed a lot. After dealing with them, they thought they would capture a few to get information. But unexpectedly, they all chose to bite their tongues to self-destruct, severing any clues about the mastermind behind them. The Master Swordsman went to the other captain to ask about something he'd heard him say. He pretended that nothing was wrong and that he'd unfortunately let one of them get away. Due to the unexpected nature of the incident, the trip would be temporarily cancelled in order to bring the two of them back to the palace. Alusia had assigned Drought to handle the scene and wanted to ask the teacher to come along and provide protection. Along the way, she wondered what she would do after this. A wrong decision could lead to unpredictable consequences. Barl also didn't expect the assassins to choose to end their own lives like that. More importantly, they had to find the person behind the incident. But thanks to the recent incident, tomorrow's schedule would be cancelled. After bringing Princess Salasia and Prince Glenn back to the palace, everyone breathed a sigh of relief, knowing that Salasia and Glenn would be safe there. The army had been notified of the assassination and had increased surveillance. For now, the two captains would have a high-level meeting and had let Rose and Barl go home first. At first, he thought that girl would follow again, but thankfully this time she didn't bother him and left. Barl thought that maybe Rose's mood was a little off because of the recent incident. Later, when the Master Swordsman returned home, he saw Freya entertaining a guest. It turned out to be Lucy. She was also there to talk about what had just happened. It seemed that the news of the royal family's assassination had spread. Lucy was very happy that she was able to come here so suddenly and still be served tea by the young lady. Freya, upon being complimented, shyly changed the subject back to the Magic Corps not participating in the escort mission. At this point, the young lady proactively left so as not to hear any more adult matters. It's a relief that all children are so sharp and understanding like this. As for the reason why the Magic Corps didn't participate in the escort, it was because of their trust in the nation. Today's attack was related to a problem in the other country, not due to any faction on their side. Lucy bluntly stated that the attackers were definitely from Spin on this side. After the meeting ended, Alusia met Rose again. When asked why she didn't go back to the inn, she said she was looking for her commander. Currently, there was no schedule for tomorrow, so for now they would just increase security. However, they didn't know what the royal family's next decision would be. Rose remembered that according to the schedule, the prince would be visiting the agricultural area tomorrow. Rose wasn't familiar with the area, so she asked the knight captain to take her there. At first, she planned to refuse, but seeing the girl plead so much, she had no choice but to take her. Back at home, Barl thought that his friend must have some evidence to confirm that the assassins were from Spin. It turned out that Ibroy had already reported it to the Magic Corps. First, there was a power struggle in the other country. The Catholics and the Royalists were at odds with each other. When asked about the most powerful person in the country, it was the Pope, but the king held the political power. As a religious country, the king had to listen to the church and couldn't ignore the Pope's opinion. However, the royal family also had influence on the council. The recent attack was because the Catholic side wanted to seize power and strength. Besides Glenn, there was another prince who was suitable to be king, which was why he was being targeted. The conversation between Alucia and Rose also went quite well. After giving her friend information about the agricultural area, they switched to talking about their sword teacher. As soon as any information related to the teacher was mentioned, the knight captain would listen intently. For Rose, who hadn't been with Barl for long, there were only a few memories. At that time, she was traveling everywhere and happened to see a main character with excellent swordsmanship. At first sight, she fell for the teacher. So she signed up for lessons. When Alucia asked for more details, she learned that the incident took place 6 years ago. Before that, the main character already had white hair. Unlike when he was guiding Alucia. The girl shyly said that she was still a kid at the time, so she didn't understand how great the teacher was. However, she was often praised to gain more confidence in her practice. After mastering swordsmanship from Barl, there was nothing left to learn, so she was allowed to graduate early. At that time, Alucia cried a lot because she loved her teacher very much. By telling each other about the main character like this, the two of them also relieved their stress. They thought that Barl hadn't changed at all from before. Suddenly, Rose noticed a lost boy and went to ask him what was wrong. Seeing a stranger, the boy was quite scared, but because she was always smiling. The boy told her that he was lost and couldn't find his mother. Alucia was about to take him to the guard station, but her friend thought it wasn't necessary. Based on the cleanliness of his clothes, the mother and son must have been separated recently. If he had been lost for a long time, the child would have cried, but this boy hadn't, so she thought that his mother was nearby to help him. Rose asked for information and then shouted loudly to attract attention. Barl now felt that everything Lucy had said was true. The assassins had all taken their own lives after being captured, and he himself had encountered someone like that before. If that was the case, then this would definitely continue. Lucy confirmed that they wouldn't stop until their goal was achieved. The higher-ups must have realized it, so Barl thought they would cancel tomorrow's tour. Just then, Freya came back from shopping, so the story was stopped there. In the afternoon, the two girls finally found the boy's mother. Alucia realized that Rose was very fond of children. She said that her parents used to support an orphanage, and she often came into contact with such understanding children. So she was very fond of them. She heard that they treated such unfortunate children very well in Spin. Rose admitted that she thought that children were a national treasure. The two then went back to work, promising to continue talking about their sword teacher when they had another chance. The scene shifts to the next morning, and somehow the tour would continue despite the many assassins. Alucia reminded everyone to be more careful and then told them to start working. Barl was surprised and asked, but learned that it was the prince's wish. The two countries had agreed, so they just had to complete their assigned task. It seemed that if Glenn requested to cancel the event, the influence of his faction would be reduced. Despite being threatened, the couple still acted cheerful. This made Barl feel miserable. Today, Karuni would also be in Barl's group, so there was a bit more peace of mind, even though they had increased the number of guards. However, they still had to be careful, and he hoped that the teacher would do his best to help. Suddenly, the other captain came over to talk, saying that the one who got away yesterday was an old comrade. Barl had already heard it, so he said that the person used to be his vice-captain. If that person showed up today, he wanted to deal with him himself and hoped that Barl wouldn't interfere. He agreed, knowing that Alucia had also been informed of this. And so, the escort group arrived at the agricultural area. All around were golden rice fields, which delighted the princess and prince. It was known that this area was the pride of the country. This was also the first time Barl had seen such a vast field. There were fields in his hometown, but their size couldn't compare. It was a pity that the weather today was a bit gloomy. So it wasn't beautiful. Barl thought that he would come back to see it again when the weather was sunny. According to the plan, everyone stopped there. Glenn requested that his captain prioritize protecting Princess Salasia. Their plan was to go into the fields to check the crops. This was to avoid showing weakness in the assassination attempt yesterday. The view from all directions was very good. The knights also gathered around in case something happened. After checking, an arrow was suddenly shot. The assassins had been hiding from the start, just waiting for this moment. A rain of arrows was shot, forcing everyone to defend themselves. Fortunately, everyone here had superior fighting skills, so they were still able to ensure the prince's safety. Barl reminded the couple to duck. Seeing that archery alone wasn't enough, some of them started to engage in close combat. Although he didn't like it, the Master Swordsman still had to act. With his superior skills, he easily cut down a few of them. Because these people were all willing to die, their attacks were very fierce and they used every trick in the book. Some of the unlucky ones were killed by their own comrades' arrows from behind before they could do anything. Barl used the corpses as shields and continued to fight. Because the enemy was numerous and not afraid of death, their side became weaker. It was really difficult to have to cut and dodge the arrows at the same time. Drought and Karuni tried to defend so that Captain Gatoga could deal with the archers. If this continued, the situation would become more and more difficult. He agreed to hand over the protection task to Barl. The next second, a bunch of assassins rushed in to cut. Fortunately, the main character had excellent reflexes, so he was still able to dodge them all. What was strange was that the guards on their side on the outer line had all been defeated, so there were only 4 of them here to defend. When the enemy had thinned out a bit, Barl asked Alucia to take the other 2 back to the carriage. The 3 of them would stay to protect, while he wanted to continue fighting. The Master Swordsman continued to instruct the princess and prince not to forget to keep their heads down while moving. After fighting for a while, the Master Swordsman was lured into the forest. There, he met Rose. She smiled and praised Barl for being really strong, then drew her sword. It seemed that Barl had realized something from her, so he pretended to go in here so that the 2 of them could talk comfortably. Barl asked his disciple why she attacked her comrades, and she replied that she had only knocked them unconscious, not killed anyone. Although she really wanted to put her teacher to sleep for a while, it was probably impossible, so she had to challenge him like this. When asked when he realized, he said it was from the day she stabbed and killed the assassin. With Rose's skills, she could have easily subdued that guy, but she chose to kill him. Plus, during the sudden increase in the number of assassins, she was nowhere to be found. When asked why she went to such lengths, the teacher wondered what effect Prince Glenn's coronation would have on Rose that she would side with the assassins. She smiled and said, if your country was destroyed by power struggles, and the population decreased over time, what would Barl do? This question was a bit difficult for someone born and raised in a peaceful countryside. What he knew was that he couldn't stand by and watch his trained student choose the wrong path. He had taught her to wield a sword to protect others. She said she was protecting everyone, and that Barl had also killed many people. The main character said his job was to eliminate assassins targeting the prince's life, which was completely different from killing Glenn to give power to the Pope. Hearing this, she said that was the only way to help the children in the unified country not die of cold and hunger. The Pope had said so and she strongly supported it. Barl thought that those children wouldn't want anyone's hands to be stained with blood for their sake, and advised Rose to stop, but she wouldn't. I have no way back anymore. Hearing this, the Master Swordsman wanted to talk another time. On the other side, Alucia's group was trying to protect the carriage. The number of enemies had decreased significantly, but their side didn't have many people left either. Barl's 2 trained female students were still performing excellently. Drought was no less impressive, crushing her opponent with strength, but the next second, that guy had strengthened himself and charged in to die. The commander requested calm, and they would overcome everything. Karuni was quite worried about her teacher and asked to go and help. Alucia trusted Barl and wanted her to focus on dealing with the enemies in front of them first. The battle between the 2 teachers and students on the other side had broken out. But he still couldn't fight seriously and only tried to block the blows. Rose had the advantage and continuously provoked him, telling him to stop her if he was so good. He admitted that it was difficult for him to act because she was a former student. After being pushed back, Barl skillfully remembered the previous move. The next second, he was able to easily dodge and escape the predicament, which surprised Rose. As expected, after so many years, the teacher was still as strong as ever. Rose admitted that although she was actively attacking, she wasn't sure if she could win in a real fight. Barl advised her to surrender, but knew it wouldn't work because if she lost, the children in the kingdom would die. Hearing this, Barl realized that she was doing this because she was being threatened. The Pope wanted everything to go smoothly, so he had taken the children hostage. Rose said that even if he didn't do that, she would still fight to her last breath. The main character was extremely angry when he heard these things. Rose asked to be scolded because she was a bad student. At this point, the Master Swordsman had made up his mind and said he would cut her. Hearing this, Rose also rushed in to fight to the death. Rose's fighting power was not high, so she often had to use a shield to block. By maximizing the advantage of both defending and attacking, she was able to push back the teacher. However, Barl was also gradually adapting to this type of fighting. That shield could indeed protect Rose, but at the same time, it could also protect him if he moved cleverly. It would hinder her attacks. And so, the wounds on the main character's body began to appear, but they were not deep enough for the Master Swordsman to care. Rose had been training this type of fighting for many years. Her attacks were mainly stabs, not slashes. To counter the move of blocking with a shield and stabbing at the same time, the sword saint from the countryside pushed his concentration to the limit. In the next phase, he was able to flick the sword stab upwards, and at the same time push Rose into a dangerous position where she couldn't block. Barl delivered a decisive slash, which surprised the student. That blow was deep enough to make her fall, but at the same time, she could still survive. Rose looked at him with sad eyes and asked what the move just now was. Barl admitted that that move was unfair, but it only worked once, and he had done it. Rose thought that if she had fought in the usual way, she would have lost anyway because the teacher was too strong. The main character said that he didn't know that because she had become much stronger since leaving the dojo, and she was no slouch. Rose's last wish was to die by her teacher's sword, but it was refused. Barl said she had to live on to face her sins, and there was still something he wanted to teach her. Just then, Captain Gatoga returned. He had already dealt with the archers. Seeing Rose injured, he used healing to stop the bleeding. When asked what happened, Barl said he had cut her. He added that Rose belonged to the assassin's side and seemed to have been forced by the Pope with the lives of many children. Many people are willing to trade their lives for their gods, but to go to this extent is truly incomprehensible. Gatoga thought that after returning, he would confirm the children's safety. For now, he would report the mastermind as an old comrade because after fighting with Ines, he had confessed his entire plan. When asked why he did it, it turned out they were brothers. Although not by blood, they were stepbrothers. The two of them had been close since childhood, so he wanted to protect Rose. In addition to this, they also needed to purge the entire Holy Knight squad. Fortunately, he belonged to the prince's side. Rose didn't trust anyone and thought that Bishop Revos had been unfairly tried. It seemed that the people on their side were not told about his real crimes. Barl had dealt with him personally, so he also told her about the crime of using and trading corpses to perform resurrection magic. Being dealt with was a matter of course. Although he didn't know the Pope's true character, Barl still advised his student not to trust him. Before doing anything, she should think carefully and hope that her strong will would be placed in the right direction in the future. As for today's incident, he would also help to cover it up. Hearing this, Rose cried and said she would try to find justice for herself. The two brothers also sent their thanks and said, "One day, we will repay this debt." He smiled and said not to worry because correcting students was a teacher's job. In the fields, everything had been resolved. Everyone was panting because they were too tired. However, they still needed to be vigilant in case there were still enemies hiding somewhere. At this time, Barl returned, which made everyone feel relieved. The three of them then had to thank him very much for reducing the number of enemies. He thought that if there were any other enemies, they would probably not dare to attack again. Rose was injured and had been taken for treatment. Today's incident was considered over. The scene shifts to a few days later, and everyone has returned to their normal lives. Their superiors have also compensated the farmers for the damaged fields. The luckiest thing is probably that the prince and princess are still safe. In addition, today there was also a letter from the palace for Alucia. It seemed that their meritorious service this time would be rewarded. She would have to attend a party with the king. Even more surprisingly, Barl was also specifically named. He asked if he could refuse because he was too shy. Alucia wasn't sure because she had never heard of anyone refusing an invitation from the king. Refusing might even get him beheaded, no joke. The Magic Corps was also invited, but only Lucy attended. She was excited and thought she would meet Barl there. Lysandra was currently on a mission far away. She hoped to return soon to congratulate her teacher on his meritorious service. The party then began with many royals. Everyone was a big shot, which made the sword saint from the countryside a little nervous. Alucia was used to it, so she had no problem. His Majesty and the princess then entered. It felt like he and the captain were quite close, talking very comfortably. The two of them would be rewarded for protecting the prince and princess of the other country. The king's party had all kinds of strange dishes that Barl had never seen before. He was also mentioned a lot by the princess because whenever an enemy appeared, he was eliminated. There, they learned that Salasia and Glenn would be getting married. The wedding would be a stepping stone for the young man to ascend the throne. So he couldn't cancel the trip the other day and lose credibility. As a father, His Majesty was quite worried about his daughter having to live in another country. So he suggested that the Master Swordsman become the captain of the guard to go and protect her. Fortunately, Alucia stepped in and refused on behalf of the teacher, saying that he still had to assist the knight squad. With no other choice, His Majesty also bestowed upon Barl the title of Sword Saint of the Kingdom so that he could stand up and protect the country. That night, Barl was also given a gift, which delighted Freya. She was preparing to cook, and asked if he was eating, and he said yes. Just recently, I didn't even know what cooking was. And now I can do it myself, so the girl was quite happy. She also praised the old uncle for being great to be personally praised by His Majesty. A few days later, the main character asked Jose to go to his home in the countryside and bring back some gifts. The old father received the letter and felt extremely proud that his son had been recognized as a sword saint by His Majesty. In fact, the two of them had been looking forward to this for a long time. The video ends here. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your comments to support the channel. New anime series will be uploaded regularly on 21st Century Anime. Thank you.